Hi folks, it's James here. Welcome to another video. Just going to be a vinyl finds video, trying to catch up with various classic rock purchases. I did a video recently looking at grails, or so-called grails. I'm going to hesitate to call this one a grail, but it was a record I was looking for. This is Blue Oyster Cult and Cultosaurus erectus. I picked this up a while ago, and it was a record that I had on CD already. I sort of discovered Blue Oyster Cult via the vinyl community, really. It was Ron Beaudry, who was one of the first people who I ever watched, and you know, I mean, I'd heard of them already, but Ron talked about them a lot. I picked up their first album on CD, and I picked up this album on CD as well. Really enjoyed it. I thought it'd be quite a cool record to have on record. And then I found a copy of it, 1980. It's kind of, it's a bit less sort of dark and underground sounding than their early stuff. In part, it's almost sort of like power pop. You know, there's bits of it that remind me of, I don't know, even perhaps the Tubes or something like that. You know, the song Deadline, it has a very melodic feel to it. There's at least one live track on this record as well. It's just a really good classic kind of, I don't know, just sort of mainstream rock album in a way. Yeah, just a good thing to have. Great cover. So that's Blue Oyster Cult. There's a shop in Morecambe, and it's called Vintage Vinyl, and it's not a particularly great shop. The stock is overpriced, not in great condition, but I did find a copy of Cream's first album there. This is some kind of reissue, and they put a couple of songs on it which were not on the original album. Perhaps the Coffee Song and Wrapping Paper were perhaps not on the original version of the record. This was some kind of later repress anyway. Nice to get it on red Polydor. Of course, Ginger Baker died recently, one of the great British drummers, so that was a kind of timely purchase. You know, they kind of pioneered that power trio sound. Very virtuosic, and you know, it made a huge impact really on the London scene back in the 1960s. Also from the same shop, from Vintage Vinyl in Morecambe, I was really pleased to find this actually, because you don't see Bird's albums in the wild very often. This is Bird Maniacs, and I think it was their 10th album. Bit of damage there to the top, but the actual record is in good shape actually. And let me show you the gatefold. So this comes from their later period, when, let me just get the lineup straight, you've still got Roger McGuinn, but you've also got Gene Parsons on drums, Clarence White on guitar, Skip Battin on bass, and the Birds themselves were not very happy with this record. It contained some kind of orchestrated parts and things they weren't very happy with. I think they felt that the recordings had been rushed. It's actually a really nice sounding record. I'm not sure if I've got the pressing, which is particularly good or something, I don't know, but it's got a very kind of, it's got a very rich sound to it. It's quite a kind of gospel country-ish sound. The Birds collection is proceeding slowly but surely. I've got a few on vinyl now, and I'm kind of, you know, on the lookout, but I mean, Birds albums don't crop up in the wild very often. Absolutely thrilled to find this one. This is from my local market stand, Heightside Records here in Lancaster, and it is the free album Fire and Water. Didn't have anything by these guys on vinyl at all. A while ago I picked up a compilation of theirs on CD from, I think it was from Sainsbury's, you know, from the supermarket. Really enjoyed that. It's on Island, and I've always liked Free, I've always enjoyed their music. I've just never particularly stumbled across it in the wild. They were a really good, influential band, I think. They had a very particular way of playing, a very specific dynamic, very wide open sound. You know, they didn't sort of really play balls to the wall, they kind of laid back a lot, and it's just really interesting the way that the bass and the drums and the guitar, you know, they've got this real kind of interplay between the instruments, which makes it very, it's very of its time, I suppose. It's got that kind of early 1970s laid back rock feel to it. This record was recorded at Trident Studios, engineered by Roy Baker. I'm assuming that's Roy Thomas Baker of Queen fame, and it contains their immortal anthem, All Right Now, the long version. So Yeah, I mean, Free, a bit like the Birds, they're a band that you don't really see. I don't see their records around the place, so I was pleased to find that. And in fact, it was a good price as well. It was well under a tenner, so delighted with that. Okay, next one. This is Santana and Caravanserai. This is a record that I heard at John Downing's house a while ago. I went to stay with John. That's 6-inch Pianist 319. When we had the vinyl meetup, the VC meetup in Birmingham, John played me this record. I thought it sounded fantastic. Ever since then, I've been on the lookout for a copy of it, and I keep finding it, but not at a good price or not in very good condition. This one was great. It was under a fiver. Nice condition on it, and it sounds great. This was their 4th album, I think, and it was a bit of a departure. I think the first 3 albums had been kind of rock, salsa, kind of, fusion, and then he went off in a more jazzy direction, and this has got some fairly kind of far out free passages, very sort of shamanic in places. It has a really I don't know, like a kind of spiritual jazz sound to it. Quite exotic sounding. It's got a big, huge range of instruments. You've got organs, you've got congas and bongos and timbales, and all sorts of amazing guitar pyrotechnics from Carlos. Great record. Pleased to get it into the collection at last. And okay, so the next one is kind of another grail in a way, in the sense that all the records by this band are sort of grails to me, because they crop up so infrequently, and I am trying to collect their records, and so I was pleased to find this one. This is Thin Lizzy and Fighting, which is one of their early albums, I think, 1975 actually, so not the earliest of their records, but a really good one. It's very melodic. It's very Thin Lizzy often get lumped in with the kind of hard rock, even the heavy metal side of things, but they had a much more lyrical side to them, and they had a kind of Irish sensibility, and there's some lovely melodies and tunes on this record. There's a song called Spirit Slips Away, which is absolutely beautiful. Silver Dollar, Freedom Song, Wild One. And it's got their cover of Bob Seger's Rosalie on it, which is an absolute jukebox favourite, from back in the day. Great cover. You can't beat a bit of Lizzy. Absolutely delighted to get that. Wonderful stuff. That was actually, where did I get that one from? I think that was from Oxfam. And it was about a tenner, I think, which is not surprising, because Thin Lizzy albums are actually quite hard to find, so I was willing to pay that much, Okay, so this next one was bought at my local antiques centre, and it is Stage Fright by the band. This is an album which I used to have on CD many years ago, and I actually lost my copy of it, and my memory was that it wasn't as good as the first 2 albums, and I think critically, it's kind of not seen as being up there. But I was really pleased I picked it up, because it's a really good album. It's kind of a bit more of a straightforward rock album, I suppose, than the first 2. I mean, the first 2 band albums have this very unique kind of down at the barn, ramshackle, kind of American country rock sound. This one has got a more straightforward rock sound to it, although it's still got their kind of funkiness, but it's a bit more polished and a bit less characterful. It's also a bit darker lyrically. There are songs on here which kind of explore the darker side of the music industry, and what was going on for the band themselves. I mean, the song The Shape I'm In was written about Richard Manuel, who at the time was suffering from addiction problems, I think, and personal problems. And the song Stage Fright itself was meant to be, I think, a sort of self-reflective piece, really. Robbie Robertson writing about the band's ongoing career, and they're kind of wrestling with fame and with audience expectations. The first 2 band records just have this lovely kind of loose utopian feel to them, but this record is definitely a bit darker, but it's great. I mean, you've still got the band harmonies, you've got all those wonderful instrumental passages, Levin Helm's fantastic drumming, and Garth Hudson on the organ. Comes with this It's not a lyric sheet, it's just a selection of just little bits of text written by each of the band about the songs. I paid £6 for this, but it was worth it, I think, given the shape that it's in, the shape I'm in, and it's on Green Capital. So yeah, delighted to find that. Okay, just another couple more. This one I bought from the Antiques Centre, and a bit of a blind buy because I don't know this band's music at all. This is the Guess who I've heard talked about on the vinyl community before. I know Paul, Fit to Be Tie-Dyed, really likes them, and I thought I'd give it a try. And it's great. It's really good. It's absolutely. I was really pleased with this. It's just very straight down the road, rock and roll music, good tunes, good singing, good performances. I can't tell you much about it because I'm not a big expert on the band. I'm not, I don't really know much about them. But it's just a really good album. Really pleased to get it. It's on Orange RCA Dynaflex. Dynaflex records do actually sound really good, even though they're kind of known for being thin and flimsy. They often sound superb, and I mean this one just sounds fantastic. So I'll continue looking out for their records. They had a couple of other ones down at the Antique Centre, but they were more expensive. I think there was one there for about £15, so I left it there. This one was a good price, so I thought I would grab it, and I'm very pleased I did. The Guess Who and Rockin'. And again, staying at the Antique Centre, another band whose records I never see. This is Humble Pie and Town and Country. A different cover apparently to, well, there is a different cover to this one. Not sure if perhaps this is a reissue of some kind. This came out in 1975. Peter Frampton, Steve Marriott from the Small Faces, Jerry Shirley on drums, who I know him, he played on one of the Syd Barrett albums. And this is a truly fantastic record, really great, just great songwriting, great singing, very bluesy, a bit like the Free one. It just has that kind of early 1970s British blues vibe to it. Steve Marriott's got a great voice. He also plays harmonica and flute on this record. There's a bit of sitar on here. It's just really kind of, I don't know, they just seem really versatile and just really natural. They've just got that, I don't know. There was a period in British rock music where everything just became very sort of just free-flowing and very fluid sounding. Think Traffic and Humble Pie and Free and all those great British bands. They sort of played with this collective sensibility, which was just very fluid is the best word I'm going to think of. Just a kind of deep, soulful, bluesy sound. Absolutely fantastic. I just loved it. Humble Pie records are not easy to find. When you find them, they're not cheap. This one was reasonable, and it's got a great label as well. Look at this label. So yeah, thrilled with that. Humble Pie and Town and Country. Okay, nearly finished. So this next one I picked up at my local market stand. This is Yes, Time and a Word, and this was their third album, I think. And I was really looking for this record about 4 years ago, just before I joined the vinyl community. I found a copy of it near where I live, and I left it behind. I don't remember why. I think perhaps the price wasn't quite right, and I've not seen one since. It's on Atlantic, and it's a great record. I mean, early Yes, I think is just fantastic. It was before Rick Wakeman joined the band, so you had Peter Banks on guitar and Tony Kaye on keyboards, and this was the record where they decided to go down a bit of a blind alley and use orchestrations. It was from that period in British rock music when everybody was trying to use an orchestra. Pink Floyd had used one for Atom Heart Mother, and Deep Purple were using orchestras, and the Moody Blues were using orchestras. So Yes thought they would get a string, like a large string section in, and try something a bit different. But it wasn't the direction that Yes were going to go in. And I don't think Peter Banks was very happy with that direction, and it might have been one of the reasons why he left the band. But it's a really good record. It's got some covers on it. A Richie Havens tune, No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed, and also it's got the song Every Days by Stephen Stills. It's really interesting, because Yes became known as being sort of, prog Goliath, really, who were just, they would just go to the nth degree to kind of stitch together this amazing, although increasingly self-indulgent progressive music. And yet in the early days, they were not adverse to covering old songs, pop songs, rock songs, songs from musicals. They were just a really, really good, interesting, diverse band before they inevitably got a bit flabby as time wore on. But it's just a fantastic thing to have in great condition. Time and a Word by Yes, marvellous. And we'll finish with, I went to Leeds a few days ago for a party. It was a friend of mine was having a 50th birthday party, so I went to Leeds and I went to a record shop called Crash Records, which is on the Head Road, but you go underneath Crash Records. There was another shop, I think it's called Wall of Sound. Headley and Dean Everest took us there on the last VC meetup we had in Leeds, so I knew about it. Went downstairs and I nearly didn't buy anything. I picked up a couple of things for other people and I was looking for something for myself, and just on a whim I went to the Beatles section to see if I could find anything, any Ringo Starr albums, because I am sort of looking for them, and I didn't find any Ringo albums, but this popped up at me. And it was one of those little kind of heart-stopping moments, because I never ever see Badfinger original albums. I did pick up the reissue of Wish You Were Here a while ago, which was a great record. Been on the lookout for Badfinger ever since, but like I said, I never see their records. This is Ass, which came out in 1973, and I was just so delighted to find this. There's a lot of love for Badfinger on the Beatles vinyl community. I don't know how much awareness there is of them outside the Beatles community. They seem to be a band which is mainly known about through the Beatles connection, because obviously they were signed to Apple, and they had such a great career while they lasted. They had this incredibly tragic story. Two of the band ended up hanging themselves, but they were a great band. This is a brilliant record. They kind of straddle all these different worlds, really. Badfinger. There's kind of power pop, there's classic rock and roll in there. The music is a bit funky occasionally. Other times it's more like the Beatles. They've got strong vocal harmonies, good instrumental technique, and just strong songwriters. Just a great thing to find. It was the last thing I was expecting to find. You go looking for Ringo Starr records, and then you end up finding Badfinger. So yeah, I was dead pleased with that. Still a fair few of their records still to find, and so the search goes on. But yeah, wonderful stuff. Badfinger and Ass. That's your lot, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. Leave a comment, and I'll speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.